Our scripture lesson for today is in the book of Romans in chapter 12. Actually, for the next 4 weeks, we're going to be in the book of Romans, chapter 12, bits and pieces of it here and there as we go through this worship series. We're going to start out with verses 9 through 15 in Romans 12. Let love be genuine. Hate what is evil. Hold fast to what is good. Love one another with mutual affection. Outdo one another in showing honor. Do not lag in zeal. Be ardent in spirit. Serve the Lord. Rejoice in hope. Be patient in suffering. Persevere in prayer. Contribute to the needs of the saints. Extend hospitality to strangers. Bless those who persecute you. Bless and do not curse them. Rejoice with those who rejoice. Weep with those who weep. This is a word of God for the people of God. Thanks be to God. Romans 12 is definitely in my top 3 favorite books of the Bible of all time. I think it is one of the clearest descriptions of what it means to follow Jesus. It's just a very, very clear, very powerful, and very poetic description of the Christian life. And so we're going to spend some time here sort of thinking about the ideas that are presented in Romans chapter 12. But it needs to be said that Romans chapter 12 is just ideas, because it's just this sort of list of things to do and ways to be. It doesn't have any stories that go along with it. There are no parables here. There's no stories that are told. Sometimes it's easier to get our minds around a story. And so what we're going to do over the next 4 weeks is supply the stories that go with the ideas that are found in Romans 12. And those stories are going to be in the form of movies. And we're not going to get to all the ideas because there's about 1,000,007 in this chapter. But we'll get to some of them and start out with the idea that was the last verse that I read just a minute ago. Rejoice with those who rejoice. Weep with those who weep. And so with an idea like rejoicing and weeping, how could we not go with a story like Inside Out? I mean, it's just the perfect story to tell all the array of emotions. How many of you have seen Inside Out before? It's a great movie. It's last year's movie and won an Academy Award for Best Animated Feature. Critical acclaim received by this movie. The basic idea is the personification of these emotions that live inside of the head of an 11-year-old girl whose name is Riley. And so you see the emotions personified from left to right. You've got fear and disgust and lying appropriately on the floor, sadness, and then annoyingly perky joy up there. And then the last dude is Louis Black. Anger, which is, the same thing, really. Synonymous. So these 5 emotions, as I said, live inside the mind of an 11-year-old named Riley, and they work this control board that control her emotional responses to the world around her. And the premise of the movie is that Riley and her family have moved, not just across town. They have moved from Minnesota to San Francisco. And so Riley has lost everything that she knew. As an 11-year-old girl, she's lost her home, her backyard, she's lost her school, she's lost her hockey team, she's lost her friends. She is experiencing this great sense of loss. And so immediately, every single one of us knows what this feels like, because every single one of us has experienced loss in some way, shape, or form. Whether that's been changing a career or changing schools. Going from one grade to the next is, in a sense, losing what you've had. Moving away, or perhaps the death of a loved one. We have all experienced loss at some point or another. and all of the emotions that go along with trying to process that loss in a healthy way. Now, in Riley's mind, Joy is in charge of headquarters. She's the one who is running the control board most of the time, and the other emotions are trying to help her do that. And so it is Joy's mission to keep Riley happy. She thinks that as long as Riley can stay happy and keep smiling, that everything's going to be fine. And this scene that we're about to watch really does epitomize her philosophy. It's the first day of school in the new school, in the new city, and Joy has a plan. She has it all figured out as to how Riley is going to stay happy and only happy for this entire day. And in her annoyingly chipper way, she has an assignment for all of the other emotions in Riley's mind. I want you to pay special attention to the assignment that she has for sadness. Check this out.
First day of school, very, very exciting. I was up late last night figuring out a new plan. Here it is, fear. I need a list of all the possible negative outcomes on the first day at a new school.
Way ahead of you there. Does anyone know how to spell meteor?
Disgust. Make sure Riley stands out today, but also blends in.
When I'm through, Riley will look so good, the other kids will look at their own outfits and barf.
Joy. Yes, Joy? You'll be in charge of the console, keeping Riley happy all day long. And may I add, I love your dress. It's adorable. Oh, this old thing? Thank you so much. I love the way it twirls. Train of thought, right on schedule. Anger, unload the daydreams. I ordered extra in case things get slow in class.
Might come in handy if this new school is full of boring, useless classes, which it probably will be.
Oh, sadness. I have a super important job just for you.
Really?
Mm-hmm. Follow me.
What are you doing?
And there. Perfect. This is the circle of sadness. Your job is to make sure that all the sadness stays inside of it.
Right. How many of you have a circle of sadness somewhere inside your... Yeah, that's right. If I could just get all my sadness to just stay in there, right, everything would be just fine. These filmmakers are brilliant. They tell a great story, but also do so in a really, really kind of eerily accurate way. They talk to a lot of psychologists in the research that went into this movie, a lot of people who know a lot of things about repressed emotions, a lot of things about what happens when you don't allow those emotions to be expressed and shared outwardly. I mean, emotions are hard. Feeling all the feels is not something we necessarily like to do. If I could just convince sadness to stay in that circle, I could probably deal with my day. It's understandable because we have this association of sadness with weakness, don't we? We have this idea that to express sorrow is to say that I'm not as strong as I could be. That is a complete and utter myth, completely false. I don't know where it came from, but it needs to go away. Nothing good ever happens when we try to keep our sadness in its little circle, when we try to repress our emotions. In fact, nothing good happens in Riley's life either in this story. The storytellers describe that nothing good by having joy and sadness get lost. They get taken away from headquarters and are lost in the depths of Riley's long-term memories. And that leaves controlling the emotional, control board. It leaves fear, disgust, and anger, trying to navigate Riley's emotional responses. That should go well. Joy and sadness need to get back to headquarters. Both of those emotions work together, and the plot of the movie is essentially this hero's journey, a quest of joy and sadness to go through the long-term memory and get back to headquarters. And while they're experiencing this journey, they meet, who's the friend who likes to play? Got to know your audience. They meet the friend who likes to play. They meet Riley's imaginary friend from when she was a toddler. Riley's imaginary friend is a character named Bing Bong. And as far as I can tell, Bing Bong is kind of a part elephant, part kangaroo, part dolphin. made mostly of cotton candy. So that's kind of who Bing Bong is. And Bing Bong knows the way to headquarters. So Bing Bong starts to guide them there. But along the way, as they go through Imagination Land, Bing Bong himself experiences loss. They come into Imagination Land and he discovers that Graham Cracker Castle has been destroyed. And he wonders what has happened to Graham Cracker Castle, not to mention Sparkle Pony Mountain and Princess Dream World, which also seem to be being destroyed. And the final element, the last straw for him, is when the rocket that he made with Riley when she was a toddler gets pushed over the edge into the forgotten pit where everything goes when it's forgotten. And when that happens, Bing Bong has to deal with his own loss. Joy is there with them and tries, as only an annoyingly chipper Joy can try, to help him experience the loss. But I want you to watch closely at what sadness does for Bing Bong to help him get through this time.
Bing Bong, we have to get to that station.
Sure thing. This way, just past Graham Cracker Castle. Hey, weird. Graham Cracker Castle used to be right here. I wonder why they moved it. Wow, I would have sworn Sparkle Pony Mountain was right here. Hey, what's going on?
Yeah, I don't know. We'll have to come back.
Princess Dream World! Oh, the stuffed animal Hall of Fame! My rocket! Wait, Riley and I were still using that rocket. It still has some song power left. Who's your friend who likes to play? No, you can't take my rocket to the top. Riley and I are going to the moon. Riley can't be done with me.
Hey, it's gonna be okay. We can fix this. We just need to get back to headquarters. Which way to the train station?
I had a whole trip planned for us.
Hey, who's ticklish, huh? Here comes the tickle monster. Hey, Bing Bong, look at this. Oh, here's a fun game. You point to the train station and we all go there. Won't that be fun? Come on, let's go to the train station.
I'm sorry they took your rocket. They took something that you loved. It's gone. Forever.
Sadness. Don't make him feel worse.
Sorry.
It's all I had left of Riley.
I bet you and Riley had great adventures.
Oh, they were wonderful. Once we flew back in time, we had breakfast twice that day.
Sadness.
It sounds amazing. I bet Riley liked it.
Oh, she did. We were best friends.
Yeah, it's sad.
I'm okay now. Come on. The train station is this way.
And as it turns out, Bing Bong's tears are made out of candy, just so that's clear. Isn't it beautiful? Because the only thing that happened there was when Sadness sat down, she just said, this is a really sad thing that happened. She just named it. That's it. She just said, that's awful. It's sad. And by saying it out loud, all of a sudden, Bing Bong was okay and ready to go about his business. That's kind of what is learned as Joy and Sadness make their way back to headquarters. Joy has to figure out that it's not just chipper, annoying happiness all the time. And neither is it just doom and gloom and everything's horrible all the time. That somehow in the balance of emotional responses, in the mixture of the confusing different emotions that we experience, somehow there's the healthy place to be. In fact, at the end of the movie, there's an amazing scene where Riley finally is able to express that sadness. Sadness is controlling the board. She's the only one, and she's pressing the buttons and moving the levers. And as she controls the board, Riley is able to cry. And tears just stream down her face as she says, I miss home, and I miss my friends, and I miss my hockey team, and I hate it here. I don't want to be here. I just am so sad. And her parents realize that, and they finally acknowledge her sadness, and they reach out to her to embrace her. And as they do, it's just an amazing story. As they do, inside of Riley's mind, sadness reaches out to joy and takes her hand and sort of pulls her over to the control board so that both of them can control the emotions at the same time. And then we see Riley in the embrace of her mom and dad, tears still streaming down her cheeks, and she just sighs, this deep sigh, because she's found the balance. She's found the place where joy and sadness can both live together, be a part of her identity. We need to find a balance of our emotional responses because life is not as simple as we wish it was. Life is not as clear as we wish it was. Life is always more complicated than we want it to be and more complicated than we wish. And so God has given us this wide range of emotions in order to express what's going on inside our hearts and minds. Freud said that unexpressed emotions will never die. Unexpressed emotions don't die. They're buried alive. And they always emerge in a worse form. The Bible gives us language of strong emotion, especially in the Psalms. Psalms of lament, like 22, one of my favorites, with incredible imagery that says, for example, I am poured out like water. I am poured out. Anybody ever just want to sit down and say, God, I'm poured out right now. I'm poured out like water. All my bones are out of joint. My heart is like wax melted within my chest. My mouth is dried up like a shard of pottery. My tongue sticks to my jaws. You lay me in the dust of death. Psalm 30 says, weeping will linger for the night, but joy comes in the morning. Sometimes we're pretty quick to get to the joy coming in the morning and forget that word linger. Weeping lingers, and we do well to let it linger. Maybe even if we skip over that lingering part, we don't ever get that joy in the morning. Weeping will linger. Let it linger. You know that our tears come in at least 3 different forms, 3 different chemical forms. Not candy like Bing Bong, unfortunately. That would be awesome. But there are 3 different chemical makeups of the tears that are in our eyes. There's the tears that are always in there, the continuous tears. And those have actually have an antibacterial agent in there that keeps us healthy. Those tears have a high antibacterial agent. Then there's tears that we get when the wind hits us or a piece of dust, something gets in our eye. We have what are called reflexive tears that would just come to us. It turns out reflexive tears are almost 100% water because their job is just to get that thing out of there. So reflexive tears are comprised of water. What I find fascinating is that emotional tears, the tears we cry when we're grieving, when we're sad, when we're scared, when we're joyful, emotional tears, tears that come from emotions, actually have within them stress hormones One of them is called prolactin. The others on the list I couldn't pronounce, so you'll have to look it up and if you want to know what those are. But they are stress hormones. They're hormones that cause stress. And they're in emotional tears. So what our body is actually doing when we cry is ridding ourselves of hormones that might cause us to feel stress. I mean, how did God think of that? When God was making us, God's like, I think I should give them 3 different kinds of tears because, isn't that just an absolute miracle? Crying is, it turns out, actually and physically a good thing for us to do. There are times, I promise you, there are times that I wish we could just feel one thing at a time and just deal with that before having to move on to feel the next thing. But it's never that way. It's just never that easy. It's never that simple. There is always this complicated mixture of joy and sorrow and grief and anger and fear and disgust and confusion, and it's all sort of a part of who we are. And I'm pretty sure I have felt every single one of those over the last week. We have experienced so much over the past week that's been lived out in such public ways. And we all have reactions to the news stories of the past week. Every single person has their own reaction, and yours is maybe different than mine. That's fine, because we're all reacting differently. I'll never begrudge somebody their emotional response to something like that. We've got these waves. We've got the event, and then we've got the wave of reactions to that event. Then we've got a wave of reactions to the reactions, where everybody's saying, no, you were wrong. It wasn't that, it was this. And then we've got a wave of puppy dogs. We got a wave of people saying, I'm just not going to think about it anymore. I'm just going to put puppy dogs online. This week's puppy dog wave was Pokemon Go. All of a sudden, everybody's playing Pokemon Go and posting things about Pokemon. No, I don't want to deal with that anymore. I just want to play and have fun, right? So it always happens. The event, the reactions to the reactions, and then the puppy dogs. We had the same thing this week. It's hard to feel things. It's hard to feel things. Absolutely is. Please, feel what you feel and say it out loud and own it. I felt so angry this week. I felt this outrage in my heart when I was responding to what was going on. This sort of this anger, just burning anger in my heart and mind. That we live in a nation where racism is still what it is, right? And then I had this deep and profound sorrow and sadness when, as the news stories progressed, I realized that there were children. There were children that Alton Sterling's son, just him breaking down and just crying in that news conference and having that just all over the place. I just so sad to realize that Philando Castile's, there was a child in the backseat of that car that saw the whole thing happen. Then Brent Thompson, Patrick Zamarripa, and Michael Kroll, and Michael Smith, and Lauren Aarons, who were doing their job and trying to keep a group of people safe, and I'm so grateful. So I felt this wave of gratitude for the police officers who do such a great job keeping us safe, and I'm so happy to be able to pay my taxes so that they can do what they do, and it's such a great feeling. And then the grief of their families and that sort of loss for what they must be feeling. And then kind of in the mix somewhere, I don't know if you're keeping track of how many, it's just so in the mix somewhere is this realization that I, as a white person, have no idea what it's like to be black in America. I just have no idea. And that emptiness, that vacuum of not being, I can't empathize, I can't relate, I have no idea what my privilege even is because of the shade of color of my skin. And it's all in there, right? And it's not as clear as I want it to be. And I know we want clarity. I know we seek clarity. I know we just love for things to be just so very easy to. It's just not. And that's okay. That's okay. Weeping will linger for the night. Joy comes with the morning. It's a mess. We just need to let it be a mess for a while. There was an interview in Baton Rouge, which is where Alton Sterling was killed. And this person that was being interviewed mentioned Florida Boulevard. And so I looked it up and did some reading about Florida Boulevard. Florida Boulevard runs east and west through Baton Rouge, Louisiana. And this is all online. You could look it up. Just north of Florida Boulevard is almost exclusively African-American communities. And just south of Florida Boulevard is almost exclusively white communities. North of Florida Boulevard is deeply impoverished. South of Florida Boulevard is relatively wealthy. I heard an interview from a Methodist pastor in Baton Rouge. She was talking about the prayer vigil their church was having. She said she was so glad they were having their prayer vigil because the other one, her congregation was afraid to go to. Guess where the other one was? Right? So Florida Boulevard, didn't know anything about it until this week, and it reminded me of one of my favorite songs of all time, sung by one of my favorite bands of all time. And it's a song called Where the Streets Have No Name, written by Bono for the band U2. As it turns out, in Belfast, Ireland, you can tell whether someone's Catholic or Protestant based on their address. You can tell what religion someone is by the street they live on. You can tell what their economic status is by the street where they live on. And so Bono wrote this song, Where the Streets Have No Name, to sort of paint this picture of a world in which that would not be the case anymore. And, you know, when I am in this mixture of conflicting and confused emotions, sometimes all I know to do is just to sing. So this is Where the Streets Have No Name, U2. I want to run. I want to hide. I want to tear down the walls that hold me inside. I want to reach out and touch the flame where the streets have no name. I want to feel sunlight on my face. I see the dust cloud disappear without a trace. I want to take shelter from the poison rain, where the streets have no name, where the streets have no name, where the streets have no name. We're still building, then burn. down love, burning down love. And when I go there with you. It's all I can do. The city's a flood, our love turns to rust. We're beaten and blown by the wind and trampled in dust. I'll show you a place high on the desert plain, where the streets have no name, where the streets have no name, where the streets have no name. We're still building, then burning down love, burning down love. And when I go there with you. It's all I can do. Our love turns to rust. We're beaten and blown by the wind, blown by the wind. Oh, and I see our love turn to rust. Oh, we're beaten and blown by the wind, blown by the wind. Oh, when I go there with you. It's all I can do.